Welcome back to Your Passion, Purpose, and Personal Brand. I'm Lisa McGuire, and today I am joined by someone I've had the joy of knowing for the past couple of years through some training that we've gone to together, and we're going to reference it a little bit in this show. Mary Clavieres is a transformational catalyst, an author, and the host of the podcast, Find Yourself, Change Your Life. She's just released her new book, Mind-Body Connection Unlocked. Simple mind-body techniques to rewire your mind, deepen your self-connection, and gently transform the way you live. And the timing of this conversation could not be more perfect, folks. We are living through one of the most tumultuous times in history. It feels like every time we open our news feeds, our inbox, or our phone, we're hit with another breaking story designed to trigger us. And the result? We're feeling emotions and stress at levels many of us have never experienced before. There has been no better time for this podcast to drop in to help us understand the mind-body connection and how we can use it to our advantage as we navigate with greater trust and awareness. So, Mary, welcome to the show.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, we've been talking about this for a while, and I think the timing, your book just released last week. I think the timing of this could not be more perfect because of all the shifts we've been experiencing. But I want to go back and just recognize that this book is not just for this time. Like, we go through these shifts all the time. And you've gone through some big shifts yourself. You were a corporate leader, an entrepreneur, now you're an author. How do you go about defining personal transformation?
So for me, personal transformation is really the continuous evolvement of ourselves on our journey. It's our own relationship with expansion and with change and how we adapt and evolve as our lives go on.
Right. And it's not just surface level, like it can go really very deep. And this is really what you talk about in your book. This, we have our daily evolvement that we have, but sometimes under the surface, if we pause long enough, we see that there's some deeper transformation coming in. How much do you think people are really doing that? Or what, in your observation, as you were looking and doing some research for your book, how did you observe that?
So what I usually find is that most people want to do that. A lot of people say they want to go deeper and they want to make longer and lasting change. But then they get stuck and they stop along the way. And so they don't actually go to those deeper points, because a lot of the times, if you really want to go deeper and heal certain things or work through them or expand in a different way, it takes work. It's not an easy thing to do. And for us to self-reflect and really look at the places where we could have done things differently, or we could show up better in some way or improve in some way, not everyone has an appetite for that. Mm-hmm. And that's okay, but it can really vary from person to person.
Yes, I have noticed that. And when we talk about doing the work, we hear people reference that all the time, right? You have to do the work. And first of all, the thought of work means it might be hard. But next is, what does that really mean? And so I think a lot of people do consider that it might be something that they haven't ventured into before. And like you said, it's okay. But I think that's something to be recognized.
Yeah. Yeah. And what the other thing that can happen is that people can think, okay, one big thing is going to change things, or one big thing is going to really shift things. And I'm very much of the mindset of small steps, consistent small steps, because in every choice you make and in every action you take or don't take, it leads you somewhere. And so it doesn't have to be a really big thing, but it needs to be you showing up for yourself. I think that's another place where it can feel hard, and it can feel maybe easy to go back to old ways or fall back into patterns. because you were more comfortable in the old place.
Yeah, that's really easy to go back to that, even though it may not be as you look back on it, what's best for you, but it's
Yeah.
the known, right? It's that comfy place for us. Well, I
Yeah.
did not mention that today we have an international podcast because you are calling in from France. And this is not a Paris vacation for you. You actually live there. So you didn't always live there. So you had some transformation to go through. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like going from your former corporate role into like possibly moving. Give us a little bit of that backstory.
Sure. Yeah. So I spent about 13, 15 years, something like that, in corporate and traveled around quite a bit for that. I actually did a assignment in Brussels for a couple of years. That's where I met my husband. So I did relocate to Belgium for a couple of years and had experience living abroad. Then we went back to the US. When a few things happened around the same time. I left my corporate job. I started building my own business, and then COVID happened, and we actually ended up moving for my husband's job a couple years later. And so all of those different things kind of combined led me to this point. And really the thing that I try to support myself with to get through the different changes, because it can feel challenging, and definitely moving to a new country, a different country is its own challenge, right? And it's not something that you move and then you just get used to it. It takes time, and really the first year is it can feel all over the place. You don't really feel settled right away. We've been here about 3.5 years now. And in that time, I just try to have the most support that I can for myself. And I really pay attention to identify what I need at any given time, and also just give myself a whole lot of grace, like figuring out, do I feel comfortable venturing out on my own? Are people going to understand my accent when I speak French? Do I really know the roads to drive and feel comfortable? All those things that you kind of take for granted when you are used to living in the same place for a long time. Yeah, so it's been windy, but over time it does really it's fantastic now, and it really does get better, and there's so many things to learn and grow from with the experience.
Yes, and you have a family, so bringing your family
Yeah.
up there as well, that's another component.
Yeah.
But I want to pick up on something you said of recognizing what you need. Now, we're not talking about what you need in your pantry or what you need
Right.
in your home, but we're talking about what you need personally. And I think that's going to lead us into our discussion today, Mary. So, how would someone begin to recognize what they need?
It goes back to the connection with the body, which, yes, I'm sure we'll be talking about more. For me, it was identifying how I was feeling in any given moment
Mhm.
and recognizing, okay, am I feeling like I'm missing a friend and I want to call, and I need to call and speak with someone or leave a voice memo or something just to feel like I have contact? Is it a time where I feel I've had a therapist, and I love my therapist, and she gives a lot of great support. And I knew actually going into the move that I wanted support for myself in that way, where I could just go and speak to someone and speak about whatever I need to speak about, and I would be supported in that container. So that was especially with moving with a family and making sure everyone else is taken care of. I identified that I needed someone for me too. And then also, if I just feel restless in my body, knowing if I need to go out for a walk, if I'm really missing the sunshine, there's a lot of things that can be pretty basic in a way, or seem basic when I'm explaining them, but it's really about community, connection, feeling nourished with nature, and also with even with food. If I was missing certain foods, or I felt like, oh, I'm nostalgic for something, and can we find that type of food here? That's a whole other, food is a whole other category. But all of those kinds of things, just identifying for me in the moment, taking a few breaths, really listening to myself. You have to really build your self-trust muscle to do it, which is probably where I started first, was building that muscle to then really identify, okay, what is it in this moment that I really need?
All right. So you mentioned self trust, and many of our listeners are in the midst of major transitions. There's a lot of job layoffs. There's a lot of just identity. Who am I now in this new marketplace? Families may be shifting. So, what role does self trust play in navigating those moments?
Oh, I think it's the backbone of everything.
Hmm.
Self-trust is really, it's when you're able to know yourself. And a lot of the times, and we'll probably talk about some of this too, but when we're, let's say, conditioned from when we're younger, we take in all the aspects of society and families and family systems and relationships and all those things, school. We take all that on and on and on. And a lot of the times we can lose our connection to ourselves.
Hmm.
And so this is what I found for myself, at least. And so building back the self-trust is really about paying attention to what you want, paying attention to what you need, going back to the need, being able to communicate that. And I don't mean it in a selfish way of I'm only concerned about myself. I'm saying it more as really taking a look at, like, what are the things that are really going to help you, and not being afraid or embarrassed or shy or fearful about expressing those things.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's really true. I think the recognition of that is something that hasn't always been in play. So I'm thinking a little bit about, when I was younger, I'm a little bit older than you, like we were never taught that it was acceptable to first recognize our emotions, right? And then
Yeah.
give them a name and then call them out and then
Yeah.
process them. Like I can remember, coming up, it was just like suck it up and move on, right? And
Yeah.
even in some of the ways that my generation parented, and that is what is so refreshing today to see how we have a different type of parenting style. And I don't, some people would call it soft. It's not soft at all. It is recognizing what we as humans need. So I want to go back to a word that you use that you and I use quite often. We are both in a training dealing with the energy and how it flows in our body. It's called human design, but there's something that we call conditioning. And I would love for you to give us a definition on how people could identify what conditioning is, maybe some examples of how we are conditioned, Mary.
Sure. I think a place where you could look right away and probably very quickly identify some things are through your belief system.
Hmm.
What are the things that you believe, and asking yourself, where did this come from?
Mm.
If you have a habit every Saturday morning, I'm going to pick something really silly. Every Saturday morning is TV time or something. Where did that come from? It probably came from a pattern or a habit in your house when you were growing up. For example, I sometimes I identify things like that for my kids, because I'm like, oh, my childhood, I did this, right? Or we did that. And then it can also be for other types of things too. And it can be for deeper things too. If you feel comfortable speaking out, or you don't feel comfortable speaking out, why?
Hmm.
Well, every time when I spoke out at home, XYZ happened.
Hmm.
So it feels safe or it doesn't feel safe, right?
Hmm.
So conditioning is all those areas where we take on from other people, and it all gets layered into us with our experiences. And we can't avoid it. So it's not to say, oh, this is terrible, you're conditioned and there's no hope, and you can't do anything now. No, it's common and it's normal and to be expected to identify the conditioning, because it happens on every level. It happens in the family, like in the house. It happens at school with whatever your teachers told you, right? It happens in the workplace, it happens everywhere.
Hmm.
So I think the belief system is one that it can seem really eye-opening if you look to say, hey, what you catch yourself with a belief and then you say, why? Why do I have this belief? And it's usually from some type of conditioning.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I'm really noticing right now, particularly as I work with both men and women, but as I work with women, some of them are, I'm going to use this term, visibility reluctant. All right. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
afraid to show up. And
Mm-hmm.
I look and I examine, where is this coming from? Well, if you think a lot of times, the narrative may have been that to be a successful person in life as a female, it is to serve other people first, right? It is to not speak up. And so when you are told those things, whether they are actual words or looks from people or situations, and you start believing that, then we are conditioned into putting ourselves last. And then when it comes time to care for ourselves, we have a really hard time doing it. So I love that you call out that it is a belief. A belief is the first place to start, and then asking where that came from. And then I think also, is that story you're telling yourself true, right?
Right.
Is that story
Yes.
you're telling yourself true? So when the world starts feeling unstable, and we've got a little bit of that going on right now, Mary, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um,
Sure do.
yeah, we do. And it doesn't matter where you live in the world. I'll just also call
Yeah.
that out as well. How do we create this sense of grounded awareness inside of us ourselves?
For me, it's always about going back to the body. It's always about actually feeling and paying attention to your body. Now, that can look different for different people, right? So, for some people to feel connected to themselves, they might close their eyes and do deep breathing exercises. They might do a meditation. They might do movement of some sort, go for walks in nature, anything that gets you to feel present. And I know you talk a lot about presence too, but anything that gets you to feel present with yourself is really the first step to being able to feel that connection again. And that's where then the self trust comes in. And then if you're really connected in your body, then you'll be able to, I always encourage people to work from that place, right?
Mhm.
So getting out of the head, getting out of the noise and overthinking and clutter from the head, coming back into your body, and then using the strength and presence in your body to go back out into the world.
Mhm. Mhm. And when we hear the word grounding, there is a way that we can actually go outside, take off our
Yep.
shoes.
You can literally, yes. You can go outside, take off your shoes and just stand in the earth, preferably, yeah, in the grass, not on the cement. You can make a grounding cord for those that are familiar and just energetically imagine yourself
Mhm.
connecting, from the back bottom base of your spine, imagining a long rope of some sort connecting through the layers of the earth down to the earth's core and attaching there, and just anything to make you feel connected either physically or energetically with the earth, and also using your body as part of that process.
Yeah, and I think too, when we get caught up in the noise, when we get caught up in the frenzy, our hamster wheel of chaos, a lot of times it's very easy to be up in your head or even up above that. Like we totally disconnect from our body of as we do that. What is going on there as far as what you've been able to discover? Why does that happen so much?
Well, I think there's a lot of different reasons, and part of it I'm sure we could tie to human design in a way too, right?
Mhm.
But I would say, without getting into the details of human design, I would say it's really about whatever we've attached to over the years and the conditioning of that. And so those beliefs, and we just create these patterns for ourselves. And we create, to your point earlier, the stories. And as we do that, then those stories and those patterns run through our head over and over. And it's so much easier to have negative beliefs. We have 60 to 70,000 thoughts per day, and over 80% of them are negative, and 95% of them are repetitive. So you're basically, unless you're aware of it and trying to do something different, you're basically spinning your wheels on things that are negative or keeping you where you are, because that's a safety measure, right? So
Yeah, we do have that. So, if we look at the title of your book, Mary, and I want to get a little bit more into the actual book because it's got some amazing content in it. Again, the title, Mind Body Connection Unlocked. So, we're going to reveal simple mind body techniques to rewire your mind, deepen your self connection, and gently transform the way you live your life. I love that word gently in there, because it's inviting us into an easy way to do it. But what does it really mean to have a mind body connection?
So, firstly, thank you for that. I'm really happy. That was an important word for me to have in there, because it does feel like in a world that's really about pushing and hustling and doing all of the things, there's a different way we can go about it. So, thank you for that. And then, okay, so your question was about the actual mind body connection.
What does that mean?
Yeah. So for me, it means being aware of what's happening in your mind, those thoughts, going back to those thoughts. What are we telling ourselves? What are those patterns? And getting out of them and connecting more back into our bodies. Because most of the time we are operating from our heads, we're operating from our minds, because we say, oh, well, so-and-so did it this way, or I should do this because somebody else told me to, right? Instead of connecting with our inner knowing, and our inner knowing is actually connected to our body. It's from felt senses in the body. It's not from our mind.
So give me an example of what it means to have a felt sense in your body.
Yeah. So depending, and some of this is where then I look through the lens of human design, but depending on the person, it will come from different places in their body. I am a self-projected projector. Nobody needs to understand exactly what that means, but based on the definition in my chart, my felt sense in the body actually comes from my defined identity center, which is, let's say, I always describe it as from the heart space up, like the space between the heart space and the throat. And when you start really learning and paying attention to your body, you'll feel it in your own place. It's different for different people, right? You might feel it in your gut. You might feel it in your heart. You might feel it somewhere else. It depends for each person. But when you can connect into that, you'll notice where it lives for you. And you don't even need something like human design to do that. You can just start to pay attention when you feel certain ways. When you feel scared, where does it show up? When you feel excitement, where does that show up? Do you feel, people are familiar with the expression of butterflies. Do you feel butterflies when you're nervous? Identifying those and just earmarking them, right? And just pinpointing them and saying, okay, in this type of situation, I'm feeling this. My palms get sweaty, or my stomach gets tight, depending, right? And as you start to identify that for yourself, you'll become more comfortable with it. And then you'll know it'll be an earlier indicator for you, because your body always knows before your mind. So when you can identify those feelings in your body, it's like your early warning system, right? And then you don't need the mind to decide, because your body's already telling you the thing.
Yeah, it really does. And I happen to be one of those that I feel it in my gut,
There you
and
go. Yep.
you'll hear we've put into our terminology of every day, trust your gut, right? What does your gut tell you? And, not everyone has that.
Right.
But what we know is there's a large percentage of people that do. So that's why it's become very prevalent in there. But I would even venture to say that when something happens, and, I've had conversations with people where someone will say something and I might feel something in my throat, right?
Hmm.
I might feel something in my heart. I might even feel something in my shoulder, like different places in my
Yep.
body. Our body is speaking to us. My question to you, Mary, is when did that develop for us, or did we always have it?
We always had it. Always. It's just we don't pay attention to it, or from the conditioning, it escapes us.
Hmm.
So I always say it's easiest to see this in children
Hmm.
because children are actually working with their energy and living their style and what they feel is best for them from the beginning.
Yes.
And then as adults, we go in and we say, you have to eat at the table, eat with your fork and knife, use your words. Like we tell them all these things so that they, fit into society in a certain way, let's say. But when you just observe them without giving them certain instruction or direction, they're living out these things and they're paying attention to their bodies. When my daughter comes home from school and has a meltdown, I know it was an intense day for her and she needs to release that, you
Hmm.
know? If she gets really hyper at a certain point and really, excited, but also all over the place, okay, she's processing something, right? Like it's just, that's her way of doing it. That's how kids do it. So we always have it. We're born with it. We're born with our connection to ourselves. And what I've usually found, what it was true for me, and what I see also with clients, of course, is that we kind of lose it over time. And then there's a point in time where we come back to it. And we start to get aware again. We say, oh, wait, actually, what if I looked at this differently?
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good point. A really good point. And I think too, not just even during our times, but I'm thinking about the times when there would be hunters on the plain and there
Yep.
might be buffalo far off, and they could just feel that in our body, that they would be able to sense that there's a stampede coming. It's miles away, but they might know something else is up. I would also say too, we can also feel like maybe when weather's going to change. Like we might be able to
Oh,
feel
yeah,
some of that in our body too. So,
definitely.
since we're looking at techniques from your book, I would love for you to pull out maybe one or two simple practices that you can help people to reconnect in daily life.
Yeah. So, one that I love is first thing when you wake up. And I am all about being simple, being like, finding what works for you, of course. So
Mhm.
I look at it as tools in the toolbox, and then you pick what works for you, right? But they're usually simple and practical and things that you can just mix into your everyday. So, one I would say is just first thing in the morning, right when you wake up, ideal, but you could also do it any time of the day. Set an intention for the day.
Mhm.
How many times do we wake up and we just go? We just turn on the phone, we go wash up, and we're doing our thing, right? But just taking a few moments that morning, I'm grateful to be alive. How about
Mhm.
that?
Mhm.
And taking a few moments to say, okay, what's my intention for today? How do I want to show up? Because when we give ourselves that perspective, it can stay with us during the day, right? I mentioned before like the thoughts and the patterns and how much of everything is repetitive. But if you allow yourself to just spend a couple minutes taking some breaths, setting some intentions, what would you like it to look like? And I'm not saying, go through your whole to-do list.
Right.
It's more how do you want to show up? How do you want to deepen your connections, or how do you want to find joy in your day somehow? And so that's one that I like because it's pretty simple. We can do it. With that, I also do love, who doesn't love a good gratitude practice?
Yeah.
So that's another one, really just identifying things that you're grateful for. I started a few years ago, a mentor of mine was talking about gratitude and mentioned going on a walk, just taking a 1 minute walk per day, 1 minute. And during that whole minute, identifying things that you were grateful for.
Mm.
And it didn't matter what it was. 1 minute, all the things you're grateful for. It's how I started walking every day. I walked every day consistently for about a year, like rain or shine. And sometimes late at night, I was like, I didn't do my walk today. I'd go outside and tell my husband, I'm going for my walk. It's like, all right. So 1 minute a day, honestly, it can really, it then adds up. And then I started walking longer and everything. And it can really change your perspective when you say, okay, am I grateful? I'm grateful for my body.
Mhm.
I'm grateful for being able to walk. I'm grateful for my voice. I'm grateful for nature and being able to see the beautiful greenery and running water and sky of this planet, you know? So all of those types of things, again, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. It's just take a minute and recognize what you're grateful for. It'll give you a real sense of presence with yourself.
It really does. And I think the thing I'm hearing in both of these, Mary, is the fact that it's taking a step back and being self-aware. The first one, when you're setting your intention for the day, what I love about that one is we often, as you said, bolt out of bed or stumble out of bed, whatever the case may be, and we just fall into something as
Yeah.
if it has been predestined for us. But what we often forget is we get to choose. We get to choose how we are going to approach a meeting, how we're going to approach speaking to a family member, how we're even going to approach looking at ourselves in the mirror in the morning. What are you going to say to that person staring back at you? What piece of wisdom would you like to give them? And what's our goal for the day? And I'm not talking about physical things, getting things done, but again,
Right.
what's the attitude you want to bring to it? The
Yes.
second part about the gratitude, I love this. It was a few years ago. I had some major foot surgery. I could not drive for 5 months, which it has taken me a while to get back. And I've just started walking again. And just this week, Mary, I walked outside again, no phone. I've got my
Yeah.
dog with me. And I look at the world in a way as if I've never seen it before. I'm looking at the trees and the shape of the leaves on the trees and feeling the
Yeah.
breeze through it, or the birds. That presence is something that is so nourishing to us. And if we don't have that, if we're so busy and we don't take the time, they can just pass us by. So I think those are both really great examples that you gave us. Really good with that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Well,
We need to bring back wonder and awe.
we do. We do. Those are amazing words, aren't they? Wonder it all. Yeah.
They
Do
are.
more of that. Have to do more of
Yeah.
that. All right. Well, we can't end this conversation without getting a little bit into human design. So, those of you who listen to the show, I've referenced human design periodically. It is something that both Mary and I use in our work. I happen to use it to help people figure out their identity of who they were designed to be. A lot of the information that comes through, and Mary, I'll give you a chance to talk about how you do it. But really, it is the energetic blueprint of how energy moves in our body. So, since you and I met through human design, Mary, I'd love to bridge the two between the mind body connection and human design. So, how does this connection support our ability to live in alignment with our design?
So for me, and with human design, there's the mind side and the body side, right? So in someone's chart, and depending how familiar they are, but there are the parts of you that you may identify with more because they're on the mind side. And then there's parts of you that are on what's called the body side, which is more subconscious.
Mhm.
And so for me, mind body connection is just in relationship with that, in saying, hey, are you paying attention? You're likely already paying attention and seeing what's on your mind side.
Yeah.
Are you paying attention to your body side? Are you letting your body have an appearance in your movie? And like, are you speaking with it, and are you letting it in? Because When you have the balance of the two, then I believe you can really connect more deeply to your purpose in a different way and feel that alignment that you wouldn't feel if you were only in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, human design is one of those tools that can help you see that. And it
Mm-hmm.
can help you understand that energy a little bit better, especially for people that like to have a tool at guiding them. That's how I look at it and use it.
Yeah. Now that's a good example in doing that. And would you be able to maybe share a story with us, either from your own life or even a client's, where human design and the mind body practices together created some type of shift or breakthrough?
Sure. I actually share this one with my clients. It's actually a family story. My younger daughter is she has sacral authority. So this means that I know you're familiar with it, but I'll say it just in case for the listeners. This means that she's meant to decide with a gut reaction in the moment using her body. Okay. And years ago, before I knew human design, and then when I was learning human design, I thought I was being a great mom by saying, use your words. I would tell her all the time, use your words. I can't hear you. Use your words. I thought I was teaching her how to speak up, right? Well, I started learning about human design. I got so curious about it, learned for myself, and then started learning for my family. And I just wanted to see what are the dynamics here? How can I better support my family? Because it really resonates for me with my chart. So what about them, right? And when I realized this about my daughter, I caught myself telling her to use her words. And I wasn't looking at her when I was asking her these questions. And I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I'm trying to force her to use her mind to answer this instead of letting her body answer it. And so then in that moment, the next question I had for her, I looked over at her and I asked her the question and I watched her body and I saw her response before she spoke anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, wow, like this is really happening, right? And so I started using that as a technique with her in particular, because that's her style, right? So encouraging each of us to use our own style of how we best make decisions. It's with our body. That's something human design shows. And so then I also taught it to my husband to identify, of course, for himself, but also for the girls. So my same daughter, one day we were in the car and I put on an audiobook because we could do audiobook or we could do music, right? And she starts squirming in her seat, like Lisa, like this, starting to cry almost, really having a meltdown. I was like, and I looked at my husband and I said, that is her body response to the audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
She doesn't want to hear the audiobook. I turned it off and it stopped.
It's
And
pretty phenomenal.
it's incredible to see really in action. And that's something that I share with others all the time. And especially if I have a reading with someone that has sacral authority, because I say, look, it's going to look its own way for you, but it's really important to pay attention to the body because that's what's helping guide your decisions.
It really is. And when you talk about that, like think about the energy in your body. Like she had a need to move that energy. It was not comfortable for her.
Yeah.
And, it's so funny, Mary, as I, speak to different people, I may reference a podcast and I'll send them a recording. What I find is so funny because I do have that sacral authority,
Yeah.
right? Because I am a generator. And you will even hear me throughout a broadcast. You'll say something and I'm in the recordings, you'll hear that, like it's coming
Yep.
through.
Yep.
I cannot stop it. And we've done it several times on this call. I'm like, but it just has to come out.
Yep.
It has to come out. But that example about telling your child to use her words when, we can be on a Zoom call and when, our instructor will give us, a thought and you can see people in the room lean towards the camera, like we're naturally doing this. And that's
Mhm.
something that if you as a just as a leader within a group, if you can learn what the different types are the people on your team, you know how to lead them better, you know what they need, you can help them as understand how they make decisions. So it is, in a business sense, the business energetics of being able to make decisions and conduct that has so much value. And I know you use that a lot in your work.
Hmm. Yeah, it's really incredible. And every single person, if they identify their decision making style or their authority in human design, it's it's life changing for them in so many ways because it's also permission to say, hey, actually, because say someone's meant to make decisions with their spleen. Well, it can be very easy to not trust your spleen. It can be very easy if you get little intuitional hits. It can be very easy to dismiss them and say, oh, well, why am I going to go do that? That doesn't make sense, right? We try to rationalize it. Well, and my other daughter has this authority, and I'm trying to encourage her. And even at 10, 11 years old, it's it, it's challenging to encourage her because of how much conditioning happens, right? That
Mhm.
giving yourself the permission to trust yourself, again, back to that self trust, to
Mhm.
trust yourself in this way of actually, I can make decisions in a way with my body. And even if I can't necessarily explain them in the moment, that's okay because I know by listening to my body, it's not steering me wrong, right? We have these instincts like we did in the caveman days and the hunting days and all those things. Like they're there, they're in our bodies, and I'm going to trust mine.
Yes, that's really true. And there's been a guest on this podcast who has been on who has coached some major Fortune 50 leaders, right?
Mhm.
Major leaders, companies that you would immediately recognize their name. And what he revealed during that interview was, and not the names of the people, but he said, in business, we're taught to make decisions with our mind, with the data. But how many of these leaders leaned into that intuition to really know and make that final decision? So this is not something that only some people do or it doesn't have any validity. It is happening over and over, but I think we're just not aware of it.
Yeah.
So many people are not aware of it.
Yeah.
So we are in a world that feels like it's spinning faster than ever. And people's nervous systems are completely dysregulated, which means, they're off track, right? What are some signs of nervous system dysregulation that we could become more aware of? Oh, we're dysregulated. And how can your book help people restore that balance?
Yeah. I mean, we're inundated every day with everything. You just open your phone, like you mentioned earlier, and you have headlines every day and all the things. And it's just shock after shock after shock. So if you're feeling the dis-ease in your body, I would say if you're quick to react to things, for me personally, this is a big one. Like I know things are off for me and I need to get centered or grounded if I'm quick to anger, for example.
Mhm.
And if I'm like short with my kids and I don't have the patience to say, okay, what's missing here? What do I need to get my patience back? Because it's it dysregulates everyone, right? Like it's then my energy is impacting everyone else in the house. So I try to take a lot of care with that. In the book, there's activities. So there's activities like we talked about earlier with the gratitude and intention setting. There's also activities that you can do for your body. So one that I love, it's called body tapping.
Mhm.
And you may be familiar with like EFT, yeah,
Mhm.
EFT tapping, and which is also great. Body tapping is another way that literally you can put on calming music and you just stand like legs a little bit apart and you tap. You can either do one where you tap all over your whole body,
Mhm.
or you tap in your dungeon area, which is 2 inches below your belly button. And I have links to some YouTubes that I can send you if you want to share them with anyone. But you can just take a few minutes. The practices with these YouTube links, I think they're about 10 minutes long. But basically, just conscious breathing and tapping at your body to release the energy, because we're processing, like I mentioned earlier with the kids, you're processing energy all day long, right? Energy is moving every which way all day long, and we don't usually take the time to release that from our bodies. And then it stays, what does it do? It stays stored in our bodies.
Yes.
So some of these kinds of activities where you can actually do body tapping or do a body scan, just take a few minutes and check in with your body and say, where am I feeling this in my body right now? And what does my body need to release that? So those types of things are in the book, and there's some meditations and other things included too, activities. So I would say there's let's say mental activities, and then there's also and energetic activities, and then there's also physical activities to help people release, because when you are dysregulated, the way you come back to yourself is by releasing some of that.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have a way to release it.
Yeah, a really good point, because that energy is in our body. And one thing I want to call out that you said is, if we do not, it is stored in our body. And the word disease, like that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
There is a disease in our body. And there's a great book, The Body Keeps the Score. We know that if
Yeah.
we store that, this is where illness comes from. And so really, a way to stay healthy is to go ahead and regulate that nervous system. So I appreciate you calling that out. So Mary, if people want to know how to reach and get a hold of you, what's the best way to contact you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram with Mary Clavieres. And also my website is maryclavieres.com. They can reach out any which way.
All right. Very good. And as far as the work that you do with people, we haven't really gone specifically into that. What types of work do you do that connects to the subject of this book?
Yeah. So I do mix in human design. So there's a portion of the work that is with human design readings and really working through either a specific change that you're working on in the moment and how to navigate that, or whether that's career or starting a business or life, all those things. And then I also work with executives and leaders in corporations to understand better their own leadership style and bring some of this work, bring some of this mind body work into their leadership, because really we can't change things in corporate unless we support leaders with identifying other ways to do things, and that takes alignment from the mind and body. So
yes, a really great point that we are leading a different person today than what we were leading pre-COVID. And a lot of us got our training during pre-COVID, and we're looking for new tools to use. So these are all great suggestions. So Mary, thank you for sharing our wisdom with us today. Your new book, Mind Body Connection Unlocked, feels like exactly the right guide that people need right now. It reminds us that transformation isn't about forcing ourselves into change, but about reconnecting to what we already have within us, our own bodies, our own wisdom, and our own trust. So thanks for being with us today.
Lisa, thank you so much. Thank you for having me and for this opportunity. And to everyone listening, I appreciate your time deeply.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And listeners, you can connect with Mary, as she said, at her website, maryclavieres.com. Find her on LinkedIn. And of course, check out her new book wherever books are sold. I've seen it on her website. So you can definitely find it there. And as we close, I want to leave you with this thought that the world may be noisy, it can be chaotic and triggering, but your greatest power lies in the quiet reconnection between your mind and your body. That's where resilience, trust, and authentic reinvention begin. So until next time, keep listening to those inner signals. And remember, authenticity is your greatest advantage, because that's where your passion aligns with your purpose, on the way to discovering your legendary, authentic self. We'll see you here next week.